I really enjoyed looking at Ossie Clark and using him to inspire me for some flouncy, swishy skirts. And it sort of made me think about the different skirts I like. And I decided to just draw out a list. And this is really just my way of creating a mood board. So you could collect images, collage them, quick drawings, or even use Pinterest. But I find this a really nice way of sort of evaluating what I like, how I work pattern cutting wise. So I'm starting with panelled skirts, which can be really varied, and it's of a technique which I think is sometimes forgotten. So it's just about changing your darts into seams, and they give a really nice structured A-line shape, sort of perfect for denim and stuff, and you can put in pockets really easily, which is always perfect. And you can even put the pockets in the sort of dart style lines, or you can put them with side seams. And I like adding it some more lines and changing it into 8-piece as well, which just gives more style lines. You can sort of top stitch it and make a real feature out of it. And it's just a way of sort of spreading the volume, and that looks really nice in a quarter circle skirt as well an A-line skirt. So you have lots of narrow pieces, so that I think it gives a nice body shape. You don't see them that often, I think because they're probably quite a lot of lines to stitch, but I think they're worth it. And then of course the other thing you can do with a panelled skirt as well is make it fitted. So far I've looked at sort of a short A-line, more a quarter circle, but it can also be a pencil or fitted skirt. So I rarely wear these because I haven't got the sort of job where you need them. But if you have an office job, they are still they are very stylish, and they can be worn in lots of different ways. I actually quite like them worn with sort of big fluffy jumpers as well. And then at the back you can have your center back seam if you want to, because you always have to work out how you get into them as well. So you have a side seam, or you can have like a feature center back seam, which I quite like. You can have it sort of out of metal or straight, and then you can have a slit as well. And you can have a slit either in the center back seam, or you could have it in the panels, which I quite like. I also quite like pleated skirts, and I think it's sometimes tricky to get right. I don't suit like a sort of wide pleated skirt. They make me look, well, just don't suit my body shape. But I love using your darts to create like a sort of A-shape pleat. So you have an A-line skirt with an A-shape, so a bit of volume pleat. It's quite flattering and looks great in a wool or denim, or it actually looks fantastic in a structured silk. It's a nice shape. And I also like a pleated circle skirt. So really plays with how much volume you're using. It's quite out there. It looks great in the cotton. And actually most pleats are fine. You just have to find a way where they don't sort of flare out. So I quite like top stitching them and not making the full depth so they don't get too bulky. And box pleats are nice as well. So I've got quite a few skirts like this where it's just top stitched, and it sort of moves the volume down and keeps the area flat. Another way I like of moving the volumes, you could do into style lines, you can do into pleats, or you can create a yoke. So it's the same as the panels, but it's a horizontal seam. And it's most basic, it's just a really wide waistband, and then you can have a gathered skirt or circle skirt underneath, or even pleated skirt. And again, it just gives structure, makes it sit really nice. You can also have a shaped yoke, which can be a proper yoke, or Dior have did some beautiful ones where the pleats sort of gather into original darts, and it's all one piece, and it's a massive pattern piece. But you could easily just add seams, vertical seams on the front to save on fabric. So you get like a T-shaped yoke, and then you get the gathers. So it's quite nice because it keeps you looking flat, because I always look like I've got a very big lunch. And I also like how you can shape yokes and make it into pockets if you want to. So it's a bit like a panel skirt, but then it goes to the side. And then you can have your pockets. I think that's a lovely shape. Again, really sort of simple, understated, but it's a skirt you will find yourself wearing every day. And I've got a few dress shapes like that, and they're just really comfortable. And I sometimes commit the sacrilege of not having pockets, like in my swishy skirt, because I don't like them in silk, but they are essential on everyday skirts, just because you need to put your hands somewhere, all your stuff. But for very thin skirts, I don't like it being dragged down, so it will have to be put into a waist, so it's a bit trickier. Sometimes I'm a bit lazy. I also love bias skirts. I've just drawn a really simple one. And that's sort of a rise, it's very sort of 90s grunge a bit, but it can be really pretty again with knitwear and like maybe the wrong side of a satin. But I think it becomes interesting where you actually move the dart, so I follow the bias like I've done here. So rather than having side seams, which are a pain to sew on bias, moving your seam into the bias is better. And even better is actually having all your darts into diagonal lines, so you can make a real feature. And I'm not sure I'm a bias girl in general, but I do have a bias dress like I have to dig out, which is just really nice and swirly, easy to wear, and fitted without being uncomfortable. Of course, I also have to draw some gathers. And gathers, again, you really have to think about how much volume you add. So with Ossie Clark skirt, I only added a bit of volume at the top and then sort of made it A-line so the volume doesn't stand out. So that's something to consider, because I've got a few fully pleated gathered skirts, and they're you have to be in the right mood to carry them off. It has to be the right fabric. So you can sort of think about, I sometimes like to use micro pleats rather than gathers. I don't actually like using a sewing machine to gather. Some people like to hand stitch gathers, or you just use a needle and do pin pleats, which isn't as precise. Well, it can be very precise if you're very good sewer. Mine are average. And yeah, and so like what's really nice, just adding a bit of pleats and getting bigger and bigger, so you have a swishiness increases with each layer, and you could have lots of layers and even different colors or tones, and look beautiful. I'm not sure what to do for third gather. I sort of sometimes quite like asymmetric gathers, but it's quite hard to draw them and make sure. It's always sort of, sometimes I want to draw stuff which just looks pretty. Oh, but I'm not quite sure this would actually work. It might work with just a few gathers, but with big gathers it would push the line out. So this might be a really nice asymmetric, quite subtle gather. Okay, let's look at geometric shapes, and they are great fun to play around with, and I love them. I love my sort of more complicated pattern cutting is geometric base, but I never put on YouTube because I don't know how variable it is. But it's most easiest is a circle skirt, and you can cut the hole in different places to play around with how it sits. You could also just fold a square and cut a waist in it, and then you get like a handkerchief, very 30s skirt, and you get these sort of beautiful waterfall pleats down the side, sort of falling down. It's quite hard to draw, but play around with it. It's quite a nice look. And ooh, I just had an idea for another skirt, but there's 1/3 geometric one, which I've done it once. It's twisted. It could be really beautiful. I put contrast bias binding on it. I'm not sure it's yet there. But these are my skirt ideas for today. I'm gonna just color them in. And I'm using ink again, and ink is always, I love it because it's quite, not chaotic, but you have to go with what the ink tells you. You can't control it. Or that's what I like. Some people use it in a controlled way. I like it that you just use it and hope for the best, and sometimes it looks beautiful and it has like very soft organic lines. So this I've used a bit too much ink, but there you can see it better. And I'm just going to highlight the middle so you can see the shape. And that's of course, that's what's great about pencil skirts, it's really flattering. Yes, too much ink. Let's use a little bit more. Sometimes I love about ink if you just put lots of water in and then you can sort of steal the ink from somewhere else and water it all down. So that looks much nicer. You can actually see the A line. Okay, ooh. Okay. Staining my table. So here I'm just going to do a yoke really bright, and I'm going to do all the yokes with ink first, so they look really bright. And yeah, just like with ink, how it sort of goes brighter and sort of more faded, and you can really play with it. And now I'm just going to put the gathers in a lighter color slightly, and put the pleats in as well. And then for the buys, I'm just going to do my lines so it corresponds, and sort of try to show it. There's a herd of people running above me, I apologize. I'm in the cellar, and according to Simon, who does the sounds, it's very good because there's so many fabric. It's like a padded sound studio. So I think it's the excuse to buy even more fabric because not all my walls are covered in fabric yet. But it doesn't stop all the running around, and we're in the Victorian house, it's the 19th century, and there's zero insulation. So I can hear if somebody crosses the leg upstairs. So with the gathers, I'm going really organic, and with the geometric shapes, I'm just filling them in lightly. And I might, with the handkerchiefs skirts, I've tried to draw on the shapes a bit. But that's the thing with a sketchbook, it's for you. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I'm sharing it with you as well. But it's really just to gather my thoughts on what skirts I love. So, these are my favorite skirts. Which are your favorite ones? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.